And I think we're ready to get started with the meeting with Blake and the sky this month. Take it away, Blake.
Hi, thanks for the introduction, Paul. I'm working from my home studio, which is in Bradford, West Gwillimbury, not Brantford. It's between Newmarket and Barrie. So welcome. I'm going to talk about what's happening in the sky for basically all of April, or the balance of April, and the first few days of May. That's when our next Recreational Astronomy Night is going to happen. Of course, it's clear for many people in Ontario tonight. It seems to be this curse. I received an alert from the Clear Sky alarm clock this afternoon showing that there's going to be good cloud-free conditions, at least for the Toronto area, and average transparency and average seeing conditions. So if some people aren't here, that may explain it. Or maybe immediately after this meeting, you'll rush outside. As usual, I've made a number of materials available for my presentation. If you go to that website address that's noted, please note that's uppercase letters. Web addresses are case sensitive, or just simply go to the Toronto Centre website, RASC-TO.ca, and you should see the article is listed sort of front and center. Or you can scan the QR code that's on the slide with your smartphone if it's got a QR code reader, and that'll take you directly to that page as well. I have my month at a client's calendar that shows stuff happening every day in many cases, and the little icons as per usual that indicate the kind of equipment that you might need, whether eyeball, binoculars, or telescope. And I've also made files available in Sky Tools format, in Sky Safari format, and for the first time I've made a list available, a bookmarked list for Stellarium. I've started exploring that feature. And there's a regular old Excel file if you don't have any of those applications. So avail yourself of the calendar and those observing lists if you're interested in any of the targets that I'm going to talk about. The various targets that I'm sharing with you are from easy through challenging. Some of them are very difficult. Some of them are basic sort of things. Some of these things you can see with just your eyes. Some you'll need binoculars. A bunch of them you'll need telescopes for them. And many of these targets are objects on the RASC observing certificate programs, like the Explore the Universe, which anybody can pursue. And then RASC members can do any of the other ones like Explore the Moon or Messier or something like that. So I'll point that out a few times as we go along, that these targets that I'm suggesting are available on a particular observing program. First, though, some anniversaries really quickly, and then we'll get into some sky stuff. 2001, a bit of flag waving here. The first Canadian spacewalk took place. Of course, that was Chris Hadfield at the International Space Station. And you may know he went on to command the space station sometime later. In 1990, in April, the Hubble Space Telescope was deployed into low Earth orbit. It's been amazing what this telescope has been able to do in terms of imaging. Sadly, though, it kind of looks like it's on its last legs, or maybe I should say last gyros. There are 6 gyroscopic systems in the space telescope to help it keep oriented. Some of those were backups, but you need a minimum of 3 to operate the telescope properly, and only 3 are working right now. So NASA has said they expect to get another 4 years out of the telescope, but if one of those gyros goes and they can't get things going, that might be the end of the story. But carry on, Hubble. I'm rooting for you. It again, it was placed into orbit with a space shuttle. This image is the very first space shuttle launch. That's Columbia. You can tell this is an early space shuttle launch because the large fuel tanks were painted white, but they stopped doing that, partly because the tank was disposable, but also the paint weighed a lot. So they stopped painting it and they saved some weight. Sadly, the Columbia space shuttle, even though it had 27 successful missions, didn't make it home in 2003, disintegrating in the atmosphere. In 1961, perhaps this is where it all started, the space race, but politics aside, it's an amazing achievement when you think about it. Yuri Gagarin, 27 years old, went into orbit and went around the Earth a couple of times, I think. And so April 11th and April 12th, people celebrate Yuri Night and Yuri Day. So that's fun. Going back further, the date 1780 is interesting to me because that's when the first binary star was discovered. Woohoo! Double stars. So William Herschel, shown here on the left, he appears to be polishing a lens for one of his telescopes, aided by his sister, Caroline. Many astronomers at the time thought there were double stars that were interacting, but he measured 700 pairs and found 50 of them to be orbiting one another. So that confirmed binary star systems. Caroline also made many significant contributions in astronomy. She discovered several comets, and she contributed a great deal to some deep sky objects that became the basis for the new general catalog that we all use. And perhaps what started our hobby, 1611, actually the dates are all a little bit unclear, and I'm not 100% sure that it happened in April, but Galilei Galilei showed his far-seeing instrument on celestial objects, and this was at a banquet with academics and astronomers and astrologers and so on. Now, of course, you may know that he didn't invent the telescope. That was Lippersley in the Netherlands, but Galileo was using it for astronomical work. And that's a refractor that you see him sort of gesturing to, and it's amazing that we still use this kind of instrument. Obviously, better glass, better optics now, but refractors are still very popular. In fact, it's a very popular instrument for wide field imaging or astrophotography. Okay, let's talk about the solar system now, what's going on sort of close to the Earth. I've noted the moon phases here in the table, so you can see the new moon is on the 11th and the various other phases that are happening. I've noted some pulses or alignments with the moon and planets like Jupiter and Saturn. We'll talk about these a little bit more later. The moon occults a double star on April 18. There's always an opportunity to do a bit of science there, because sometimes double stars aren't revealed because they're very close together, but the moon can block one out and then block the second one out, maybe block a third one out in steps. So a few double stars have been discovered that way. I show favorable libration dates for seeing craters that are at the edge or the limb of the moon. And I also note the Mi'kmaq Bennett Louis Goose period starting on the 12th, sort of the next evening when you could just start to see the very young moon. And that period, it goes from the new moon through the full moon and goes to the next new moon. And it's known as the birds laying eggs period, which makes sense. The birds and bees are getting busy right now. So that's some information about the moon. This chart, if you look at the legend on the right, you can see the colors there. this chart I've highlighted sort of the April-May period, and the gray line that's peaking in that period, that's Mercury. So Mercury is reaching its maximum brightness. In fact, this is the best time to see Mercury for the whole year. Sadly, Mars, the red line, is dropping, but you can see Jupiter and Saturn are slowly increasing. There's nothing really notable about some of the other planets right now. So there's just a handful of planets that we'll talk about. Again, this is a really good time to try and see Mercury. When I first got into the hobby, I had a heck of a time spotting it, but now I've seen it a few dozen times. I've seen it naked eye a number of occasions. What makes this easy or good this time of year is that in the evening, the ecliptic is the imaginary line that the planets and the moon and the sun appear to follow. You can see the ecliptic is very sort of steeply canted. If you wanted to see the ecliptic vertical, you'd have to go to the equator. But for us, you can see it's around 45 degrees maybe at the end of April. And that's good. That elevates or lifts the planets up higher in the sky when the ecliptic's at that angle. In the morning, it's not that case. It's quite bad in the morning. On top of that, Mercury is, you can see to the right of the ecliptic. That's the northern side of the plane of the solar system. It ascends through the ecliptic on the 21st. So that puts it sort of higher, even higher in the sky for us. And you can see that on the 30th and even the day before on the 29th, you're getting this effect where Mercury appears to be above Venus, directly above. Be careful if you use your binoculars. Wait for the sun to disappear. Don't look at the western or west northern sky with your binoculars or magnification if the sun's still up. But look for Venus and then slowly sweep upwards and you should see Mercury. I'm always amazed how much fainter or dimmer Mercury is in contrast to Venus. Take the binoculars away, look in that area now that you know where Mercury is and you have a sense of the difference in brightness, then you should be able to see it naked eye. You can see Mars is way up high here. As the sky darkens, you can't see it in this image, but I circled that region and that's where the Pleiades is. So Mercury will be very close to Pleiades a couple of days after that. This image shows Mars. You can see Mars is kind of between the horns of Taurus, and on the 16th, the moon is just to the right. On the next night, the moon will flip over. It'll be on the other side of Mars. Both of those nights will be sort of very nice, maybe to take an image or a photograph. And notice also that Mars is almost making this perfect triangle with orange Betelgeuse and orange Aldebaran. That's pretty neat. So some wide field photo shots might be very pleasing. With binoculars, you can look for Mars passing near to Messier 35. That's an open cluster. Stellarium calls it the shoe buckle cluster. Not quite sure why. But that'll be pretty nice in binoculars. Those are both targets on the Explore the Universe certificate program. All the planets are. So that'll be kind of neat, and maybe that would be fun to photograph as well with a refractor. Speaking of Mars, which is very small in the telescope, there's really nothing to look at. You probably heard the headlines or news media talking about what's going on with Mars. The Perseverance rover successfully landed and has been roaming around, and it just dropped off the little drone-like helicopter from the belly, and then moved away, and the drone is charging up its batteries. And I understand today they were supposed to unlock the blades, so they're getting ready to do a first flight. I read today that's not going to happen earlier than the 11th, but on the 11th or 12th we should hear about them doing a little more steps for the Ingenuity helicopter. So go, Ginny, go. um, if you're a morning person, you'll find Jupiter and Saturn is visible at 6 a.m. But notice how the ecliptic is low, and notice both the planets are below the ecliptic. Did anybody see this yesterday morning or this morning, the moon below Saturn and then below Jupiter? If you missed it and you're a morning person, you can try again in early May. You will get a very similar scene. Here it is, and you can see that it's 5 a.m. Planets are higher, the sky is rotated to the right or to the west here, but again, the moon joins them. So not great viewing opportunities, frankly, for Jupiter or Saturn right now, but this bodes well. It means that these are going to be great targets in the summertime. So that's good. Just a heads up here, if you're looking at the RASC Observer's Handbook and you're looking in April, it appears that there's all these Jupiter double shadow transit events that are happening. And those are all wrong. Sorry. You have to cross those all out of your handbook. Go to the updates page on the RASC website, look at their errata information, and update your handbook. You got to cross out some things. I printed off some little piece of paper, stuck them in my handbook to have the updated information. Stellarium was just updated, so 0.21 is out, and Chris Vaughn and I have been watching this closely, and we found that they corrected an error that had been in the last few versions with the great red spot position. So that seems to be working again. Friday morning, there is an opportunity to see something interesting on Jupiter. You could look at Io or Io, and it transits the planet surface. This is happening at sunrise, and you can see a shadow as well, if you're inclined. I found a fascinating article at Sky and Telescope where they're talking about mutual events, and this is where a moon blocks a moon, and a moon goes into the eclipse of another moon. So there's some really neat images and little videos that they're showing there, and they show all the dates and times and stuff like that. So check out that article if you're interested. Asteroids. Apophis missed the Earth, so it's probably an asteroid that's going to kill all living creatures on the Earth. So space agencies are paying a lot of attention to this. There's conferences that happen on a regular basis. There's planetary defense organizations, and they're trying to come up with good strategies, and there's a test that they're going to try to do. They're going to try to blow up or light a bomb off on an asteroid and see what happens, and so on. So anyway, Apophis missed the Earth, so you have to keep wearing your mask in the meantime. There are, I checked the spaceweather.com website, and there are no notable potentially hazardous asteroids, so nothing to report. But I was very excited to learn that asteroid Potato and asteroid Beer is going to be close to the Earth. That's a match made in heaven. There's a comet that you might be interested in. If you don't have to stay up too late for this. If you look maybe after midnight or 1 a.m. or something like that, and you look towards Aquila, you should be able to pick up in binoculars or a small telescope this comet C 2020 R4 that was discovered by the Atlas system. You can see it's moving really rapidly. It goes through Hercules, and then it heads over into Bootes on the right. So through the whole month, it's making tracks there, but it is it is going to get dimmer and dimmer as it goes. But there's talk that it might reach magnitude 6, but I believe the current magnitude estimates are around 8, 8.2, 8.3, something like that. Meteor showers. I give a thumbs down to the Lyrids this year. Meteor showers are usually best after midnight, and for the Lyrids, the first quarter moon is around. It's a bit more than first quarter. It's 68% lit, and it doesn't set till 3:45. You get 1 hour of total darkness then before astronomical twilight starts up. So I don't know, it doesn't seem worth it to me. So I give that a very low rating. But the Eta Aquarids, I think, are fair. There's a third quarter moon, it's 38% lit, and that moon doesn't rise until 4 a.m. So again, 11 o'clock after midnight, start watching for Eta Aquarids, and they are very swift meteors, and they leave persistent trains. Usually they don't generate fireballs, and we can get 10 to 30 per hour. I've seen some ratings go 60 per hour. So that's probably your best opportunity. And ideally dark skies. So if you can get out of the city light dome, that's best. Okay, let's talk about deep sky objects now. And I'm going to do my follow the meridian technique that I've done before. The meridian is the imaginary line that goes from north to south and goes through the zenith directly overhead. You can see the little yellow Z in the middle of my illustration there in Ursa Major. So when objects, constellations, and so on are near or go through the meridian or are at the meridian, and I'm showing this for 10:30 p.m., a week or so from now, these are when the objects are highest in the sky. This is your best opportunity to look at these particular objects. The exception to that is if you're looking north and looking towards the North Celestial Pole or Polaris, the things that are below that, they're along the meridian, but they're at the worst time that they can be seen. The objects that are below the meridian wait 6 months and they'll be better. We do have to make an exception though in this case because there's a bright nova happening in Cassiopeia. So let's do our tour now. Again, variety of objects and objects that are on various certificate programs and so on. Here we go. Starting with, in the south, the Sextans constellation, which is often shown in charts or maps as a single line, just a stick. That's a silly way to render the constellation. I've drawn some additional lines here, some of the arms of a sextant and the curved base and the sighting scope and so on. A very nice galaxy is the Spindle galaxy. I have an image of that I'll show you in a moment. And it's a finest NVC. There's a nice double star here, Gamma Sextantis. Now I've been trying to split the AB stars, and I have not been able to do it. It's a combination that it's low in the sky. This is the best time to look at it. You need good seeing condition. It's a tight binary star with a 78-year period. So some years are better than others, or some decades are better than others. Anyway, I keep trying. So, but it's a triple actually, and the C star is very easy to see. So see if you can get at least the C star. If you're lucky, maybe you'll get the B as well. Bit of a challenge object are the NGC objects 3169, 3166, and 65. The Astronomical League notes the two of them as two in the view. They have this neat two in the view list for galaxies. That's fun to sort of work through. And those first two are Herschel 400 targets. So there's some interesting stuff in this little tiny constellation with faint stars. If we move up now, I forgot, here's the Spindle galaxy. There it is, NVC 3115. That reminds me a bit of a flying saucer in an old science fiction movie or a B movie, a UFO kind of shape there. And that image, I captured that with the Burt Gaffney Observatory. That's a free telescope imaging system that you can use, and you communicate with it via social media. So here we are, a bit further up in the sky from Sextans. Here's Leo. We could spend a couple of hours just talking about stuff in Leo, but I've got easy targets here, things from the Explore the Universe certificate, like the constellation itself, Regulus, and there's a very easy double star, 3536 Leonis, up in the sickle, or kind of the head part of the lion. Some other double stars that are here are Tau Leonis and 54 Leonis. So those are a bit more challenging objects to see. Another star that I note here is Wolf 359. This star is 8 light years away, and it's one of the stars with the highest proper motion. It moves a lot. It's just floating through space, and it's moving pretty rapidly. It's almost 5 arc seconds per year. So I've been taking images of this once a year. This time of year, I take an image of it, and I've got just a couple of frames, 2 or 3 frames, but I can clearly see the star moving. So I'm going to collect a few more frames and make a little animated movie out of that. There's some Messier objects that are here, 95, 96, and 105. You could argue that might be called the Triplet, but the Triplet's over by the back legs. But if you look closely at 95, 96, and then 105, you'll see that there's some NGC. There's NGC 3384. That's a finest NGC. That's on the Herschel 400 list. And then not far away is NGC 3389. So that's the Leo quintuplet. There's 5 galaxies all in sort of close proximity there. And then the classic Leo triplet is there with Messier 65, 66, and the Hamburger galaxy. And I have an image of that to show you. I've noted Mu Leonis up at the top of the head here. That's an exosolar system. There's an exoplanet there. Now, we can't see that with our amateur telescope, of course, but you can do a bit of a thought experiment here. It's very interesting to note that the planet has an orbital period of 358 days, and the distance from the star is 1.1 astronomical units. That's a little bit more than the Earth-Sun distance. So that's very evocative. It's easy to imagine, I wonder what the world is like there. Except the star is a K2 class star, and that's much cooler than our G class stars. So it's probably an ice world there. So did I cover everything there? I think so. Oh, Vesta. The ecliptic goes through Leo, and there aren't any noteworthy planets or other sort of interesting things going on here. But little Vesta, asteroid number 4, is doing a little loop-de-loop, little arc. You can see it's kind of in the midsection of the line there. So put binoculars on that and go out and look a few nights in a row and do a sketch, and you'll see the asteroid moving. There's the Leo triplet. Messier saw the left-hand galaxy at the bottom here, 66, and then the right-hand galaxy, 65. How did he not see the NGC 3628? Anyway, obviously it's dimmer here, but arguably a bit bigger. And you can see it's bent a little bit. Consequently, this made it into the Halton ARP catalog number 317 as an unusual or a disturbed galaxy. Here's Leo Minor. Just very briefly, there's some interesting objects here again. A couple of galaxies that are noteworthy. NGC 3344, which Stellarium calls the sliced onion. It's a face-on galaxy. It's faint, but it's quite lovely in a photograph. 34, 32, I have an image for you to show you that one. It's clearly disturbed. Double star 7 Leo Minor here. It's a wide double star. It's fantastic. Great colors. It's clearly a triple if you can get some magnification on that. And a very intriguing object, a double star that I looked at a couple of weekends ago, is A2152. It looks like it's a quadruple system, but there's only one official double star pair in that. Here's an image of 3432. The Stellarium program calls this the knitting needle. I'm not quite sure why they call it that. It's very long and stretched out for sure. It looks like a spiral galaxy to me, edge on, but it's been bent or disturbed. It's ARC 206. It's a finest NGC. It's a Herschel 400. Here's Ursa Major. Lots of stuff in here. I've looked at Messier 82, 81. I photographed them. I've looked at the Owl Nebula and almost always been disappointed. And it's because I'm looking at the wrong time of year. This is the time to look at or image these objects because they're high in the sky. It's nearly overhead. We have objects for the Explore the Universe. We've got a whole bunch of Messiers in here, and we've got some finest NGCs. Here's an image of 4088 NGC. You can see it is also disturbed or bent, another ARP 18. The nova that I was talking about is near the Bubble Nebula, which is going to be hard to see, and it's below Messier 52. Well, I shouldn't say below. It's near Messier 52. That's an open cluster, which should be fairly easy to see. Look closely at your star charts and look for a bright point that's not on your chart. That's the nova, and it's magnitude 8.2. That's in binocular range. Normally, I would not recommend looking at objects in Cassiopeia right now. They're too low, but try for that comet. Here's a sketch by Tom Luton on the left, and he tagged the nova here. You can see in his drawing, it's above Messier 52. He used a Dobsonian, so it's a rotated view. And you can see I pulled up a SkyTools chart, so good correspondence here. I want to thank all these people. I use a lot of tools and software to make these presentations. And that's it. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you so much, Blake, for a thorough The Sky This Month presentation, as always. Let's check online with Ward if we have any questions.
Thanks, Paul. Yes, we actually no questions really, just some comments. Leo made a comment about he picked up the Leo triplet on Sunday. Picked that one up Sunday evening.
Very good.
Also, Eric Briggs, he's viewed the nova. Looks good. Says it's a nice nova. Brendan Roy just dropped in. Does the Dipper set as seen from Toronto? That's the question.
Dipper set? The Big Dipper never sets. It's circumpolar. So now you need a good sight line to the north. But 6 months from now, if you were looking at it, the Big Dipper is very close to the horizon, kind of hugs the horizon. Now it's almost overhead, or it appears to be upside down. That's actually a symbol that old farmers used. When the Dipper is upside down or pouring out its water, that's when you start planting. That tells you the season for beginning to plant and beginning to grow crops.
Excellent. No other comments or questions.
Okay, thanks again.
Okay, thank you, Blake.
Thank you, Blake.